Hello students, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jagdeep. In this video series, we'll talk about the theory of demand, where we will cover everything related to demand. The previous video series was on indifference curve analysis, and I've covered the indifference curve analysis not only for grade 12 but also for the higher levels. You may find the playlist in the description box. So without wasting any time further, let's get started. Now when we talk about demand, demand is a word that comes from desire or a want or a need. Alright? Now, desire and want are something that a human being can actually do without. That means it is not really important for an individual to have what he or she desires. On the contrary, when we talk about need, these are the goods or services that are absolutely essential for survival of an individual. So when we talk about demand, we are basically referring to the desire or want or a need for a given commodity. We also need to focus on something called as money. Money is something that we use as a medium of exchange, alright, and we use it to buy goods and services. Apart from this, there is another factor which is called as willingness to buy or willingness to pay. What this means is mere wanting the commodity or mere needing the commodity would not constitute demand. A transaction would be categorized as demand only if a consumer is willing to pay for that particular commodity. Let us take an example. We have, let us say, a child, and this child is standing outside McDonald's, alright, and he's looking at a burger. Now this definitely indicates that the child really is interested in consuming that burger. That indicates that there is a desire, and the child would be willing to pay as well, since he really wants or she really wants to eat that burger. But we need to remember that we have a child in picture. That means he or she may not have adequate amount of money to buy this burger. And in this scenario, even if the child has the desire, is willing to pay, but does not have the purchasing power or does not have the money, so the child will not be able to buy the burger. He or she cannot purchase it. And since the child cannot purchase it, wanting the burger would not amount to demand. Alright? So that would bring us to what demand is. In simple terms, layman language, demand is the desire backed by ability, that is your purchasing power, and willingness to pay for that commodity. So supposedly now this child does have the required amount of money. Then this child will be able to purchase the product. In that scenario, the child just created demand for this burger from McD. Clear? So for effective demand to exist, we need these three things. We need the desire, the ability to pay, which is the purchasing power, and the willingness to pay. Let's take one more example. Let us say we have a rich person, but he or she is a miser. We've talked about miser as a factor that is opposed to the law of diminishing marginal utility in the previous video series, right? Misers are people who have or may have the money but not the willingness to spend. So if this rich miser is desiring maybe a car, we have the desire, there is ability to pay as well, but given that he is a miser, he may not be willing to pay for this car and hence would not end up purchasing it. And in this scenario, the demand for this car will not be created. Alright? So with these three things together, we will create demand for the good, which is also called as effective demand. Now technically speaking, what is demand? It is the quantity of a commodity that consumers are willing and able to pay for at a given time. What does demand means? It refers to the quantity of a commodity a consumer is willing to buy at a given price during a given time period. This brings us to 4 key points that we have to remember when we talk about demand. First point is there would be a definite quantity of a commodity. So when I say quantity of a commodity, example could be say 1 loaf of bread. That's a quantity of a commodity. Second key pointer is we would always have some reference to price. Let us say this loaf of bread is costing say $2. That's the price for 1 loaf of bread. Then we have a given time period. That's another factor, time period. Now this time period could be anything. It could be daily, it could be weekly, it could be monthly, so on and so forth. Now bread is a commodity that probably every consumer would want to consume on a daily basis. Apart from that, demand is also a flow concept. Why is it a flow concept? Because it is being studied with regards to a time frame. Let us take one example. So let us say Simona buys 1 loaf of bread daily, every day for $2. That's her demand for bread. Alright, let us take a look at what is the meaning of demand function. So demand function basically is a mathematical representation of relationship between the quantity demanded of a given commodity and the factor that is influencing this quantity demanded. On a general notion, it could be the price of the commodity, income of the consumer, prices of related goods, advertisement expenditures undertaken by businesses, taste and preferences, so on and so forth. So for example, I've taken 2 factors. Factor number 1 is the price of the commodity. How do we write it? We write it as QD is equal to F into brackets PX. What does this mean? QD stands for quantity demanded, F stands for function that I did not write. So let me write it over here. F is function of, okay, and Px is basically the price of commodity X. So quantity demanded is a function of price of commodity X. That's how we read it. Likewise, another factor is income. So QD, which is quantity demanded, is a function of the income of consumer. This is how we would talk about demand as a function of various factors. If we are supposed to write it in that format, this is how we would write it. QD is a function of price of X, advertisement expenditure, income of the consumer, price of related goods, and tastes and preferences. This is how you would express the demand function. Alright students? Students, if you find my videos helpful, do like, share and subscribe, and there will be plenty of reels from this chapter too, especially with regards to factors influencing demand. So if you are keen on studying those, you could follow me on my Instagram as well. I'll see you in another video with another topic. Bye now. Take care.